If a
Ya, agak lagging ya.
region is where all of the pieces and parts of your application live, some of you might be thinking that we never actually solved the problem that we presented earlier. If my business needs to be disaster proof, then it can't run in just one location. Well, you're absolutely correct. That's why it's common for businesses to operate across multiple regions. That way, if one region is experiencing outages for any reason, the operations can fail over to another region. But we'll cover that more in depth in a later lesson. In the meantime, I'm going to sit back here and relax because I know that my business is highly available, regardless of any disasters or spilled lattes.
Oke.
Hmm,
Baiklah.
kayaknya nyimpan ke dalam situ.
Okay. So starting today, we're going to speak in English. We're going to ask
Bentar ya.
questions in English. I'll try to answer it in English also. So is there any questions regarding the video? Mudah-mudahan nggak tambah sedikit orang yang bertanya ya. Ayo. Katanya tuvelnya gede-gede nih. Any questions? Jadi saya nggak sengaja muterin video dalam bahasa Inggris supaya kalian tidak bertanya ya. If you still feel like confused regarding the regions, availability zones, especially the terms HA, high available, dan fault tolerance, please ask questions. No? All right. So I just want to summarize actually like a shortcut. If you think about high availability and fault tolerance, basically fault tolerance is the way, the technical things that we have to do. If you only have one server or one computer, when it goes off, you cannot provide any services to your customer, to the users. So we need more than one devices, in this case, the computer. So if there is something happen to the first computer, the second computer will take up. All right. So that's the way we do fault tolerance. That's the technical thing. The impact of having a fault tolerance architecture is you got the high availability. Available means it's always provided you with the services. So if per se we have an applications, the Tokopedia, if the Tokopedia only have one server and that server goes down, then you cannot access the applications anymore. So once Tokopedia deploy the fault tolerance architecture, means they provide more than one computer. One goes off, then you still get provided with the services. In this case, you still can access the applications. So thus it comes the term high available or high availability. All right. So again, fault tolerance is the way, high availability is the impact, the result. Okay then, If there is no questions, I would like to move forward to the next slide. Yes?
Sir, I got a question. Does choosing a region affect eh, does choosing a region affect cost and performance?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. If you have done your homework, you will know that actually when we choose a region, you have to consider about the distance. So basically, if you know availability zones means data center, so choosing a data center far from where you are, in this case, if let's say your user is accessing your applications from Indonesia and somehow you put your applications or you choose the regions, let's say in North America, that means your user has to travel all the way to the server back in the North America. That means you have delay. It's just like when you travel from Jakarta to Singapore and you travel from Jakarta to Bandung, of course. Well, actually, you only take 1 hour to Singapore by plane. I mean, like if we use the same transportations, we go by car to Bandung, you go by car to Singapore, of course, you will reach Bandung first because the distance is closer. All right. So if we talk about internet, distance matters. So choosing regions, of course, will causing the performance. Second, you need to travel faster. That means you have to apply for more bandwidth. In this case, it will cost you more. So choosing a region have to consider the distance also. All right. Is that answering your questions?
Yeah, thank you, sir.
All right. Yes.
So, sir, my question is, if we decide to deploy our application into multiple availability zone, like in the availability zone one, we set up all the like EC2 storage and network, uh, and is it automatically replicate to the other availability zone, or we should reapply the setup that we did in the availability zone one?
Yeah. When coming to the applications, you have to see layer by layer. Yeah? So in terms of the infrastructure, it's automatically replicating. So from one AZ to another AZ, it is replicating. Means like if there is something happen in the data center, let's say in AZ1, okay, let's assume, because I also do not know where it is. Let's say AZ1 is in Jakarta, AZ2 is in Kalimantan, and AZ3 is in Papua. Let's say like that. All right. So when you design your applications and then you deploy it, you deploy it in AZ1. All right. When you deploy it in AZ1, that means you put your applications all the way to the data center that is in Jakarta. Let's say Jakarta was in chaos and then, burnout, the data center just don't work out. So in terms of networking, in terms of power, in terms of connectivity, you still uh, can have the same power connectivity and uh, what the infrastructure from AZ2 and AZ3. But when you say you deploy your applications, that is deploying it into either one. We learned yesterday there is server and serverless. Server means you are using EC2. Serverless means you are not using any virtual CPU like EC2. So that means you need to create an EC2 before you can deploy your applications if you are using a server type one, right? So when you deploy, let's say your applications is web-based applications, you deploy it into the EC2 server. The EC2 server belongs to EC1. Then when it goes down, you cannot access you cannot access your applications. In this case, you have to replicate it yourself. So remember yesterday we talked about the responsibility model, the shared responsibility model. So anything that you deploy by yourself, that is your responsible. That means if you install the applications in one EC2 residing in the AZ1 and AZ1 goes off, then you cannot access your applications. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right. No foul. Go ahead. What is your questions? No foul? Oh, sorry, it's not no foul. Is that Adam?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, why is there only 3 AZ on average region? Like you said before, like for Jakarta, only 3. Can there be more like that?
Yeah. So again, back to the shared responsibility model, the responsibility to create the AZ is not within the users, but it's on AWS side. So currently, AWS created 3 AZs for Jakarta. That means we can only use that 3. Can it be 4? We do not know. If someday the users in Jakarta likes too many, and then AWS thinks that it's not efficient enough for Jakarta to have 3 AZ, then they will like to add more, then it's totally up to the AWS because it's the responsibility of the AWS. Currently, no, you cannot add more AZ by yourself because you are on the user side. Okay? Is that
Yes, sir.
answering? Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right. Any other questions? All right, Nizar.
Hello, sir. I have a question. Does every region have the same feature, or maybe some region has exclusive feature in their region?
That's a good question. That's a good one. Well, not every region has the same services. So it really depend on the kind of applications deployed in that particular region. Okay, for example, Jakarta region was created in 2019, end of 2019, or let's say in the early first quarter of 2020. So we have a project at that time. Master System has a project, quite a big one, and we need to use EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Service. At that time, EKS is not available in the region Jakarta. So we have to use the Singapore region, which is the closest to us at that time. Yeah. Until then, Jakarta have almost all the services that most of Indonesian customers use. Then we run our own EKS kind of that things, yeah, including at that time also AWS Outpost. There is a service called Outpost. So at that time, we cannot use Jakarta region also. But right now, we are okay using the Jakarta region. So basically, it's like the services provided for particular region. It really depends on the customer. Like Master System, we are vendors, like you said yesterday. We have a lot of customers, and then these customers might need certain services. At the very first time, almost like beyond the common services, we might want to request to AWS. Uh, the example, like I told you, it's EKS. We have to propose to AWS to follow that up and then install the services for Jakarta region. So they are like, you know, made by order. So you order them, then they will provide it for you. Well, that makes sense enough because if they provide everything the same, that will be exhausted. That will need more resources than it is required. The services is there, but there is no one use. What for, right? So yeah, every region will have different services depend on the needs for particular region.
Ini desain ya.
Is that answering your questions?
Yes, sir.
All right.
So much.
Next one. Is there any question? Yeah, Bagas.
Okay, sir. I want to ask regarding that multiple region and multiple availability. But so how do we choose between multiple AZ and multi-region when we design an architecture?
Well, basically, it's very easy for you to decide what region to use. The um, the grounding is always where you are, where your customer are. Let's say our customer is Pertamina. Let's say like that, right? So Pertamina is in Indonesia, and then if you have to decide which region you have to use, like the first questions, choosing a region, you have to consider the distance. Can you use North America as a region for Pertamina? Yes, you can. But then, you know, Pertamina has to reach all the way from Jakarta to North America. Yeah, there is a cost over there. I mean, like the distance make introduce some delays for you, and then also the cost, it will be higher than if it's like in front of your, it's just in your backyard, something like that. So in this case, your customer will define what region you're going to use. So in this case, we are using region Jakarta. That's the best. And then second one about the AZ. Well, we have to bear in mind that AZ will replicate only the infrastructure, but the application itself, it's really depend on you. So deciding which AZ to use for deploying your applications, that's totally up to you. You can choose any AZ and it has no impact, even though it's one in Jakarta, one in Kalimantan, one in Papua. I can make sure that there is almost no different performance among the three of the AZs, because the concept is AWS introduced a very high speed fiber optic connectivity among the three AZs. So whether you're going to each AZ, it will give you no impact at all. You install your applications using AZ3 in Papua. Let's say the response time when you request a page is like 1 second. Even though you deploy your apps in Jakarta Jakarta AZ, then it will give you the same 1 second. So among AZs, there is no worry that it will degrade the performance. In this case, it's up to you which AZ you want to choose. Yeah, but just bear in mind, your responsibility is the applications. And there is no replications like automatic replications if you not explicitly say which one to replicate to where. All right, is that answering your questions, Bagas?
Maybe I have additional question.
All right.
So let's say Pertamina, they have overseas client or worker. So to have a robust system, does it like yes, the first step is multiple availability zone, but because they have
Mhm.
overseas client, uh, they might be opening on a different region, so it will add more cost. But uh, what if we reduce the availability zone in, let's say, region Jakarta, and open another uh, like server in a different region? Does it still have that robust system?
Yeah, that's a good one also. Yeah. So this is kind of art. First of all, if we have overseas client, like overseas offices, like Pertamina, they have an office in Singapore, they have another office in, let's say, USA. Okay. So you really have to see this in detail. Is the user overseas accessing your applications? If yes, what kind of applications? And then if you already know what applications, you have to ask again whether that applications is also in share, you share the use of that applications with the users in another country. And then after that, you have to decide also, well, if we have an office in USA per se, but there is only like two administrative tasks, two administration staff that use the applications, do you really have to deploy the applications in region, let's say USA, North America or South America? I don't think that, you know, those two administration staff really eligible to be considered for us to deploy our applications back in, let's say, the region North America. Why? Because first, you need more resources, you need more EC2. Second, you are introducing a more like a bit complex configurations because each region is an isolated virtual um, border like that. That means if you have a server, an EC2 in North America, which I think I have not seen the topic about. Okay, later we'll jump to regions like Asia and so on. Yeah, there is a what's called VPC. All right, so the VPC is virtual private cloud. When you create an EC2, it has to be within a VPC. So first, you choose the region. Second, you will choose which AZ to deploy your applications. But after you decide which AZ, then first of all, you have to create what's called VPC, Virtual Private Cloud. When you create your VPC, and then the first thing is you might want to create a sub network. It could be a public subnet or a private subnet. Well, by default, you will have a public subnet created. All right. Then when you created the public subnet, then you will, start to launch your first EC2. Okay. So the same infrastructure also happened in North America, as well as in Indonesia. So both Indonesia and North America, and let's say you want to provide access also from Singapore. So there will be like 3 regions, and then each region will have AZ also. And then within each AZ, there will be a VPC and a sub-networking also. And then there is the EC2, all right? So you can see later on, among or between VPC, you have to create a VPC interface so that the EC2 in North America can cross to the VPC that lies in region Jakarta. There is some permissions you have to configure. There is some role-based access you have to apply, like who can read, who can edit, who can delete, kind of that things. And then also when the data traveling from one VPC out to another VPC or out to another system, there will be an additional cost of uh, uh, a data. If you like, let's say every transactions require like, let's say 1 kilobytes of data, whether it's send or receive, then you can calculate, let's say per day, you have like up to 1 gigabyte of data, then you will be charged for 1 gigabyte bandwidth that you are using. So, I mean, in a brief imagination, you can tell that actually when we use multiple region, multiple AZ, it's not just end up when you say multiple region, multiple AZ. There are a lot more work that you need to apply at first. Second, you need to consider the distance. In this case, it's the performance. And the third one is the cost also. Okay. So these kind of things, sometimes we need to consider. Let's say, like I told you, maybe in USA, you only have 2 administration staff, a simple user that will only read your report or maybe, you know, um, send some data, maybe three days a time, kind of that things. So it doesn't really worth to create another region for that kind of functionality. All right, it's better to choose which load is heavier. If we know all that Pertamina is the headquarters of Pertamina is in Jakarta. That means most activities will happen in Jakarta. In this case, when we talk about applications will be accessed more in Jakarta than another region. So in this case, it's better for us to, put all the applications and everything in Jakarta and let the administration staff, which is only to access your applications back to Jakarta, kind of that things. Okay. There is a lot more considerations. Let's say also, Pertamina is one of our strategic government facility, or you can say our state university or state facility or country facility, which is very high privacy, very high confidential kind of that things that cannot be accessible for people outside of Indonesia. So we have some undang-undang in Indonesia that the data has to be resided in Indonesia. In that case, you might want to put the database in Indonesia. And if you only deploy your applications which connected to the database in Indonesia, you can tell that, if you want to display a list of, let's say, customers, then your applications have to go back all the way back from North America to Jakarta, retrieve the data, and then display it for the user in USA. I mean, like, things can get more simple. Just don't put more complexity to something that is not really significant. What do you think, Bagas?
Yes, I actually agree. So it's rely on the usage. But what if, like, let's say, like, uh, what's the e-commerce in China? I think it's Alibaba. before they ban in Indonesia, we directly shopping to the China, right?
Yep.
So in that scenario, does they open a server or a database in Indonesia, or they still have it in China? We access it through China.
Well, when you say it is banned in Indonesia, one of the reasons is that they do not want to build a data center in Indonesia, right? So in that case, we can tell that they don't have any server in Indonesia.
Okay.
All right. Let's say, well, we can always go like, yesterday we see that there are three models when we want to do deployment. It could be on cloud, on premise, and hybrid. Let's say Alibaba can go hybrid. So there is an office here, have a couple of servers, but the server still belongs to the region back in China. It could be like that. Yeah. So it's hybrid. But the thing is that China might want to think, like Alibaba in China might want to think that, why should I do that? The connectivity, first of all, in Indonesia is not as good as in China per se. But the thing is that this server has to go back and forth from China to Indonesia just to display some items for Indonesia customer. Well, Indonesia customer is big. The thing is that when they do not want to put servers, then they are banned. Then you have to go all the way to China. And that's fine also. I mean, like, if you have to go to the server in China just to open up some web page, it really depends on the capacity of the server, the bandwidth that they are provided. So I mean, like, China has the very resources. So of course they will have a very big farm server with a very high specifications of CPU, GPU kind of things. And also they can always like provide very huge bandwidth to be accessible from people all over the world. So the really things that matter is our connectivity, our internet connections to the internet. Well, let's say if you use IndiHome, and then it's just a public bandwidth. It's not like the dedicated one. So you will feel that your connectivity to Ali Cloud, accessing Alibaba is very slow. But without blaming Alibaba server or resources infrastructure, you might want to upgrade your so-called your type of connectivity, internet RAN, from the public one to a dedicated one. And then you can feel that when you buy the dedicated one, you will get faster, right? So, I mean, like, when an infrastructure is already in terms of like the capacity of the hardware, the internet bandwidth and kind of things, the only problem might lies on our client bandwidth connections. So in case of like Alibaba, even though they don't host any server in Indonesia, it will be no matter in terms of the performance that they can guarantee to any client all over the world. Okay, and that's worth for Alibaba to do so, because they can calculate how many users they already have. But in terms of Pertamina, it's different things. It's not e-commerce, it's not marketplace. It could be like a B2B applications. It could be only like internal applications. So when we talk about the frequency of access, it's not as many as the e-commerce platform. So there is, you know, a lot of point of view variables that you have to consider before you might want to choose multiple regions, multiple AZs. All right. What do you think, Bagas?
Yes, I I think I think the same too. So it got a lot of variable to consider when we choosing multiple AZ and multiple region. And mostly from what I get is that the cost and the latency is what is the most priority to
Yes.
beating.
Yes. And the use case that people use multiple region, multiple AZ, mostly is backup. So they want to have a backup. Like maybe if AWS have the region in, it's not right now, let's say in Hanoi, in Vietnam, or in Cambodia per se. Cambodia is like, you know, about to warring with, who's that, Thailand? So in that case, they might need like a lot of companies, businesses wants to have a backup at another regions because chaos will happen, you know, bombing and everything's war basically. So you need to have a backup, right? Other than that, it really depends on the use case. Yeah, case by case. All right, I think so, Bagas.
Yes, it's
All
good,
right,
sir.
all right. Thank you very much. Other questions? Okay. If there is no questions, we move forward to I before we go to EC2 because there is a lot of questions regarding the global infrastructure. So let's go to AWS infrastructure.
The coffee shop is thriving. In fact, the shop has gained quite a following, and now we're thinking it's time to expand. That's right, breaking news, the coffee shop is going international. As the shop plans its expansion, there are a few considerations to keep in mind. First, we need to decide where to open new locations. We want to reach coffee lovers in different parts of the world, but we also need to consider factors like local demand, regulations, and costs. This is like how in AWS, when you are expanding globally, there are a number of factors to consider when selecting AWS regions. In these upcoming lessons, you'll learn all about what goes into choosing a region or set of regions. The next step of our coffee shop expansion plan is that we want to open some lightweight, smaller footprint versions of our shop called coffee carts. We'll set these up in places like farmers markets, airports, and event venues. They won't serve every drink or item on the menu, but they can provide the most popular items quickly and efficiently. These coffee carts are similar to how AWS Edge locations work. Edge locations offer fast, localized delivery of the most frequently accessed content. They cache things like images, videos, and other assets and resources, allowing users to get the content they need quickly without waiting for it to be retrieved from a central location. You'll learn more about these soon. Finally, our shop wants to standardize and automate processes so we can keep our customer satisfaction consistent. No matter which shop or coffee cart the customer visits, we want them to get the same great experience. We'll train staff on the same recipes and use smart coffee machines that can be programmed remotely and replicated to all the different locations, making sure that a cappuccino in Stockholm tastes just like one in Seattle. Similarly, AWS has infrastructure in place to help businesses scale responsibly and consistently. In this section, you'll explore how to achieve consistent deployments across environments and global deployments using infrastructure as code, or IAC, specifically focusing on AWS CloudFormation. By the end of this section, you'll have a thorough understanding of the ins and outs of AWS global infrastructure, helping you to achieve robust, scalable, and globally available applications. So grab your cup of coffee and let's dive in.
All right. Just to remind you also, you can grab your cup of coffee Right, you can see that another solutions to not fully deploy a new region or availability zones like our discussion previously. You can also use what's so-called edge location. So edge locations basically provide the content only. The applications can be like accessible, like our discussions. We have, let's say, My Pertamina applications that is hosted in Jakarta. And then the two administration staff might want to access the My Pertamina. The thing is that there are some documents, data files, picture, videos, whatever it is, that have to be downloadable from the point of view of, let's say USA, let's say like Seattle, right? It will be like, traveling with that huge capacity of files all the way from Jakarta to Seattle. So AWS provide what's called edge locations. So you can put or copy your data across region. Okay, but the thing is that edge locations, it doesn't really attach to the region. It's something out of region itself. So basically, you don't have to set up a new region, AZ, and so on and so forth. You just create one edge locations, and then that will have the same data as your data in Jakarta. Again, about the data, that is user responsibility. So you might want to schedule or have a strategy how to copy the data from Jakarta to Seattle so that you have to ensure that it's updated, kind of that things. Once you get the edge locations, then the user in Seattle can access the My Pertamina, but the content, the data, will be downloadable from the Seattle itself. Okay, so before we go further with the infrastructure as a code, let's see edge locations. Yeah, so you can see here, it is said that AWS edge locations are strategically placed sites around the world that has content. This is very important. It's only content, yeah, so that AWS can help you to deliver the data with lower latency. Okay, and again, these edge locations are smaller facilities outside standard regions. Okay, so it's not part of the region. The most important thing is that it will be positions, it will be put closer to end user. Okay, let's see the video. Maybe it will give you a better visualization about what is edge location.
You've seen how user proximity, regulatory compliance, service availability, and even pricing can play a factor in selecting an AWS region. When it comes to infrastructure, you also want to plan for long-term stability and less or virtually no downtime for your users. So, if your infrastructure has an interruption, you can switch to redundant or backup infrastructure seamlessly. This is called building redundant architectures. One method for redundancy is an architecture that uses multiple availability zones, or AZs. In a multi-AZ architecture, if an AZ has an interruption, no worries. Your application will automatically switch over to the backup AZ you have configured. Even better, if you set it up correctly, your customers won't even notice a difference. Because let's be honest, nobody wants their favorite meme site or coffee shop app to go down. Additionally, multi-AZ architectures can assist with quicker disaster recovery, improved business continuity, lower latency, and compliance. But as with anything in the world, there are multiple ways to peel an orange. In fact, you can go one step further and deploy your application in multiple AWS regions. So, if a whole region experiences an interruption, you can fail over to another one. Aren't you glad you chose AWS as your cloud provider? Some of you might say, wait, Rudy. Multi-region and multi-AZ deployments? This sounds like some sort of pinball machine. Well, yeah, it is exactly like a pinball machine, but with a multi-ball bonus. It can be difficult to juggle multiple pinballs initially. They are moving in different directions, and you might stress about keeping track of all of them. However, once you come up with a strategy and you get some experience, it gets much easier. So, don't worry too much about perfecting your AWS global infrastructure right off the bat. Just like pinball, planning and executing multi-AZ and multi-region deployments gets easier after you've practiced a bit. Who knows, someday you might even get an AWS infrastructure high score. Just kidding, I don't think that's a thing. Is that a thing? Oh, it might be a thing. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, looks like Rudy's Rhubarb Refresher, trademark, is so popular that people are making memes of it. However, images are loading slowly for some people on the app. Let's fix that by utilizing Amazon CloudFront. CloudFront is a content delivery network, and it's designed to serve content as close to users as possible. This content can be images, data, videos, applications, APIs, and in our case, memes. CloudFront uses edge locations, which are part of our worldwide Amazon Global Edge Network. These edge locations are actually separate from regions and are specifically designed to accelerate content delivery.
Please excuse our internet bandwidth. Ya, sambil nunggu dia kembali lagi. You can still hear my voice?
Yes, we can.
All right. All right. So, maybe you noticed that he says the applications can replicate, fall back to the other AZ automatically. Yeah, you have to prove that. Yeah, I mean, like, you already have the AWS console. You can try yourself, create an EC2, deploy your applications, and then you try to shut down. I don't know, maybe it has to be a disaster, but we cannot simulate disaster. I mean, like, you know, if we refer to the AWS shared responsibility models, then the data cannot pass through anywhere if you are not explicitly allowed it. So just use that as a reference. Even though it says that one AZ falls down, then it will replicate all the things to the other AZ, that needs to be proved because we cannot simulate that, right? It has to be disaster. If you only shut down one EC2, you can for sure see that there is no replications happen because it is not a disaster. It is intentionally shutting down of your own computer. I mean, like, just bear in mind about the user shared responsibility model. Then you have to be very aware of what you are doing to make sure that your system has a very reliable redundancy kind of that person says. And then the second thing is about the edge locations. So there are some steps that you have to fulfill before you can have the edge locations, which is first of all, you have to use the AWS services called CloudFront. So CloudFront, like he said, it's a CDN. content delivery network. But basically, CloudFront is like a web interface that you can access, whether by API, whether by browser. Then you can go to the CloudFront, and then you can reach your content over there. Yeah. So ads locations is not something like magically happen itself, but to be able to use an ads locations that you have to use the CloudFront services. All right. So I think it's going to wait forever. Let's move to you yourself supposed to be able to play the video later. Yeah. So let's move forward to the infrastructure, back to infrastructure. This is the key benefits: high availability, agility, and elasticity. And then it says something about the infrastructure as a code. Well, this is just general introductions. So CloudFormations actually will let you automate your deployment because actually it's a script. So you can create your script. The format is in JSON. You can create a JSON script to automate your deployment. Let's say you want to create EC2. So there is a specific syntax in the CloudFormations that you can use to create an EC2. And then you also have to take care of where this EC2 is residing, whether it's in private subnet or public subnet, which AZ, which region, kind of that things. Yeah. So we put everything, all the configurations variable that you need as you use AWS console into the code. And the code is in JSON formatted. All right. So that's all before you try yourself later. I want to go to region. All right. We already know a region, a couple of questions regarding selecting regions. So officially, the reasons to consider in selecting regions, first of all, is compliance. It means for the regulations. So Indonesia have owns regulations. I told you, maybe Pertamina has a very strategic facility owned by our state, our country. So we have the undang-undang already that you cannot bring the data out of Indonesia. So based on that regulations, you have to comply with that. So you cannot like create a database within the regions of North America, kind of that things. All right. The second one is customer proximity. So based on the distance, the closer, the better. All right. Feature availability. So it really depends on what features you might want. Well, like my example before, most of the features that we need is in Jakarta already, but only one or two, a couple of them is not available yet. Something like EKS at a time. So that doesn't bring us abruptly creating a region in Singapore. Okay, like I told you, it will only introduce another complexity. But what we are doing is that we have two regions, but then we only call the EKS from within the Jakarta region at a time. So it's like fully working system in Singapore, like a mirror system, but we only use the EKS from Singapore up until it's available in Jakarta. When we can prove number of transactions happen with the EKS, AWS might happily to provide the services in that particular region. So it is the feature availability is one of the considerations, but like this guy said also, there is many ways to peel an apple. So even bahasa banyak jalan ke Roma. So we cannot really depend only because of the feature is not available in certain region, then we also, create another regions. Yeah, consider also about the complexities. All right, then the last one is the pricing. Costs vary by region based on OPEX, taxes, and local requirements. It also an impact of the exchange currency. So Indonesia compared to Singapore, Singapore is have a higher value than our Indonesian rupiah. So the pricing using any services in Singapore also yields a higher cost for us. All right. So those are considerations when you selecting a region officially. Yeah. I mean, officially it's like if you take the certifications test, then you have to answer using those variable. Yeah. But actually it's more than these four when we select a region. Okay, the second one is availability zones. So within the regions, we are provided with some availability zones by AWS. Like I told you, it's AWS responsibility. We cannot create our own AZ, but we can only use what is provided. Yeah. So about the AZ is actually one or more data centers within a region. Means like if we only have one AZ, then we only have one data center in that region. In case of Jakarta, we have 3 AZ. That means we have at least 3 data centers in Indonesia. Why I said at least? Well, data center actually is like, if you buy a ruko, then you put all the things as a data center. And then you can have another ruko next to you and you build up the data center also. Then you have 2 data centers. Will that make 2 AZ? It doesn't necessarily to be 2 AZ. It could be 1 AZ that, span across multiple data centers, kind of that things. But a simple definitions of an AZ equals to a data center. 1 AZ, 1 data center. In case that the data centers, like I told you, can span over multiple sites, multiple data centers, that's beyond the definitions of the AZ itself. So AZ, 1 AZ, 1 data centers. All right. Then an AZ will have its own independent power, networking, and connectivity. These 3, yeah. So it's power, networking, and connectivity. Okay. Independent means from one AZ to another AZ, they have their own physical power plugged to the servers and all. Networking, they have their own hub, switches, routers, and connectivity. They have their own channel to the internet. Okay. It is said that here in the latest what's it called material, every region has at least 3 AZs. Well, back in my days when I still have this training, that was in 2019, early 2019. It doesn't have to be at least 3 AZ. Yeah, it could be 2 AZ or only or 1 AZ. But right now, minimum AZ is 3 within one region. So you just use this officially. Yeah. And then AZ are physically separated. Why? It is to reduce disaster risks. Like I told you, it could be a chaos, a riot, kind of that things. So to be prevented from that kind of disaster, then we can have a physically separated data center. In this case, physically separated AZ. And then it says, yet close enough for low lag communications between them. So it cannot be like too far also. I mean, like if one in Jakarta, one in Kalimantan, the other one is in Papua, will that be close or far? It is considered far. But can it be done? Yes, it can be done. About the low lag communications, well, if you use a fiber optic under the sea, then I think that is like a low lag. So it really depends on how AWS look over these things. because it's not our responsibility also. If they said, well, one in Jakarta, one in Cikampek, the other one is in Bogor, it's really up to them. Yeah. What if Sumatra have this catastrophe happen in Aceh and Sumatra at that time? Oh, right? Well, you can imagine it's not happening in West Java, like in Jakarta, Cikampek, and Bogor, but if the disaster happened in West Java as it is happened in Aceh and Sumatra Utara, then all the AZs will be down. Then you don't have any services available. Yeah. Again, it really depends on how AWS wants to deploy them. If they think that far is not that far, like, even Indonesia and Singapore, we have undersea cable, fiber optic. It's not considered far, but it's doable and it's good. I mean, like, Indonesia Internet Exchange is connected to a backbone, right? One of the closest backbone is in Singapore. So far is not far anymore. But officially, you can take this as the theory that AWS says the AZs are physically separated to reduce disaster risk, yet close enough for low lag communication between them. The thing is that how close is the close enough? We do not know, right? And we don't have to know also. It's not our responsibility. And then we can see the illustrations of an availability zones. Since it's a data center, let's say this one is US West 1. It's in North California. And then we have 3 data centers. In this case, North California has 3 AZs, which is US West 1A, B, and C. Okay. All right. AZ is a single data center or a multiple of data center. Well, it's a multiple of data center. Why? Because one region at least have to have 3 AZs, 3 data center. Sometimes as answering questions like this is very tricky because it's all about words, but you know what you understand. For me, the concept matters most than the certifications. If you really want to take the certifications, it's up to you. But the most important thing is you have to be able to demonstrate your skill instead of just a paper without the ability to to do the technical things. Okay, so that's regions availability zones. Actually, I would like to find VPC. Where is it? It's it's not that one. Networking. Okay. So if you are asked the infrastructure of AWS, it consists of regions and availability zones. When we speak about networking, there are some components of the AWS networking. First is Amazon VPC, which is Virtual Private Cloud. So actually, it's a logically isolated sections of AWS that you can launch resources within the virtual network that we define. And then the subnets. Subnets is a sections of a VPC that we use to organize resources. It could be public or private. Well, public when it faces the internet, and private is just for internal only. You cannot go in and go out. Yeah, the term go in and go out is that you cannot go out to the internet. You cannot have an access from the internet all the way to your internal system until you allow them to do so. Okay. Let's see the video. Let's hope that benefit.
Looks like things are really moving forward in our coffee shop. Though we had a few eager customers go full steam ahead and yell their orders at the baristas. Tusk, tusk. They should be politely asking the cashiers instead. This does bring up an interesting point, however. It just doesn't make sense to allow every customer to be able to interact with the baristas in the back. After all, our baristas need to stay focused on crafting caffeinated beverages. So, what do? Well, we need to limit access to the baristas and let customers interact only with our cashiers. And wouldn't you know it, we can use AWS networking to accomplish that. Specifically, a networking concept called Amazon Virtual Private Cloud, or VPC. VPCs help you provision a logically isolated section of the AWS cloud. In this virtual network, you can launch whatever resources you decide on. More importantly, these resources can be public or private. Public-facing resources have access to the internet, whereas private resources do not have internet access. This is perfect for our coffee shop. We can make our cashiers publicly accessible so they can interact with our customers to take their order and process payments. We can then prevent our customers from interacting directly with the baristas by making them private resources. This means, hey, I can focus on making drinks. Refreshing. Okay, time to dive into more networking concepts. Good luck.
So AWS always use this video material, the coffee shop, to give an analogy so that you can be better visualize the concept of anything they are explaining. One of the T is the networking. So VPC basically, the AWS is dissected, and then you can create some subnets within it. Maybe you can tell that I'm going to give you an assignment to really experience what actually is VPC, subnet, how to create an EC2, how to make people can access the EC2, and then how to let the EC2 from within the private subnet can have an access to the internet, right? Kind of that things. Okay, so furthermore about the VPC, you will see that basically when you put an EC2 in a public subnet, like it is said that public subnet is facing to the resources in the internet, it doesn't happen automatically, but you need an internet gateway so that your EC2 can go all the way out to the internet. Yeah, and then also the next is about the private subnet. You will also have to use what's called the net gateway. Yeah, so if it's internet, it's going to the public. Net is for your private resources to go out all the way to the internet. So net is a network address translator. Let's see about these things.
To reiterate, a VPC, or virtual private cloud, is essentially your own private network in AWS. When you use a VPC, you can define your private IP range for your AWS resources and place things like EC2 instances and elastic load balancers inside of your VPC. Now, you don't just go throwing your resources into one big VPC network space and then move on. Instead, you place them into different specific subnets. Subnets are chunks of IP addresses in your VPC that you can use to group resources together. Subnets, along with networking rules that we will cover later, control whether resources are either publicly or privately available. This idea of public compared to private access to resources is super important. For some VPCs, you might have internet-facing resources that the public should be able to reach, like a public website or a load balancer, for example. However, in other scenarios, you might have resources that you only want to be reachable if someone is logged into your private network. This might be internal services like an HR application or a backend database. First, let's talk about public-facing resources. To allow traffic from the public internet to flow into and out of your VPC, you must attach what is called an internet gateway to your VPC. An internet gateway is like a doorway that is open to the public. Think of the coffee shop. Without a front door, the customers couldn't get in and order their coffee. So you install an entrance and the people can enter and exit when coming and going from the shop. The front door in this example is like an internet gateway. Without it, no one can reach the resources placed inside of your VPC. Next, let's talk about a VPC with all internal private resources when you don't want an internet gateway attached to your VPC. Instead, you want a private gateway that only allows people in if they are coming from an approved network, not the public internet. This private doorway is called a virtual private gateway, and it allows you to create a VPN connection between a private network, like your on-premises data center or internal corporate network, to your VPC. To relate this back to the coffee shop, this would be like if the coffee shop was located inside of a private corporate office building. If I want to go get coffee, I have to badge in to verify my identity. Then I can access the internal coffee shop that only people with access to the building can use. So, if you want to establish an encrypted VPN connection to your private internal AWS resources, you need to attach a virtual private gateway to your VPC. Now, something to note about the coffee shop in the private corporate office building is that this building is shared by multiple companies, and there are a lot of people who work here. Even though I have special access to the coffee shop, I still might have to wait for the elevator, navigate crowded hallways, or stand in line. This is similar to how a VPN works. While it provides a secure connection, it still routes your traffic through a shared network, which can sometimes lead to slowdowns, especially when many people are using it at the same time. It's not that the VPN itself is slow or a bad option, but rather you may need higher bandwidth or a dedicated line in certain scenarios. Now, if I had a direct, super secret magic doorway that led from the studio straight into the coffee shop, I'd bypass any congestion and have a reliable, high throughput coffee connection at any time. That sounds pretty nice. This is a similar idea behind wanting a dedicated private connection to AWS. With AWS, you can achieve that using a service called AWS Direct Connect. Direct Connect lets you establish a completely private, dedicated fiber connection from your data center to AWS. It ensures both security and consistent high performance. You work with a Direct Connect partner in your area to establish this connection because, like my magic doorway, Direct Connect provides a physical line that connects your network to your Amazon VPC. This can help you meet regulatory and compliance needs, as well as sidestep any potential bandwidth issues. Thanks for listening. I'm going to hang out here and keep ordering magic drinks from my magic door. See ya.
All right. So there are three magic doorway that she said. First of all, from the public internet, you can provide an internet gateway so that people can go in and out through the internet gateway. The thing is that security considerations. Anybody in the internet can come through the internet gateway. We might not want to do that. So we might have a VPG, virtual private gateway. That is for the customer. That is really, we understand this is our customer, and this customer might have a VPN connections. If you happen to use, well, I do not know whether you ever know something like the BCA click business. I ever use that. So the BCA click business, not click BCA like you have. It's not only the key BCA that you need to have an access to BCA. But first of all, you have to connect to the VPN. And then after that, you type in the key to get into the BCA products. So the VPG is kind of that things. For any user with VPN connection, can come through a very special door, a VIP door, to access the EC2 or any VPC resources. The thing is, the VPN still using the same highway that is used by the public internet user. Okay, you can imagine we have a jalan tol in Jakarta, yeah, and then that Jakarta toll, the toll road in Jakarta is used by anybody. That is the internet highway. Yeah, you can imagine that. So for the internet highway users, you provide internet gateway. So anybody can come and go through the gerbang tol. Okay, but you might want to have a special user. Yeah. Well, I cannot say we don't have that in Jalan Tol, but using the same Jalan Tol, then you can have a special ID. Oh, wait. You can use this analogy. If you ever go through an airport and then you might want to go to abroad, let's say to Malaysia or to Singapore, kind of things. Yeah. So when you come to the airport, you show your ID card, passport. People who have a common passport can pass through the immigration stuff and everything. That is the internet highway. But there is a special passport with chip that you can pass through without having to queue to the check-in officer. So you just go pass through the special gate and show your passport with chip, then you're all the way to the immigration's gate. That's the same highway, the same road that you use to access the internet. It's just that VPN is spatial tunnel that require an encryption key so that you can access the internet more privately than a public internet. All right. And the third one is, you might notice that even though I have a special highway, but since we are using the same public road as the public internet users, it could be very possible that your connectivity is still slow, even though you are spatial, you are secured, but the accessibility is slow. You might want something not only private in terms of the security, you also might want to have a faster lane, a faster access. So that's come the direct connect. So basically, how do you have the direct connect with you? You have to apply to propose to some telecommunications provider, telco provider. One of the telco provider that we use for our project is Lintas Arta. Yeah, Lintas Arta headquarters is in Jakarta. So the customer, let's say X, the company name is X, yeah, the X company have to write a letter to Lintas Arta making a proposal that we are going to apply for a direct connect for AWS. And then once it's approved by Lintas Arta, it will tell you that it will create a special port in its switch or router for the customer X to use with AWS. Then the AWS, together with the customer and master system in this case, we connect physically the cable, the fiber optic, from that router or that switch to the AWS, and the other leg, the other side, connect to the customer. So by that case, you have a very highly private and confidential different highway to the public internet. That is called direct connect. All right. PPG direct connect. So this is the picture. Maybe it will better visualize it for you. The VPG is the same public internet highway. It's just that you have a VPN connections. Yeah, but it's still using the public internet path. Direct connect is different. The direct connect location, this one in the middle, was in my case is Lintasarta, because we are using the direct connect of Lintasarta. And it's also confirmed that Lintasarta provide a direct connections with AWS. Not all telco provider can provide direct connect. Yeah, as long as this telco provider is working in corporations with AWS, they have the direct connect facility. So we apply to Lintasarta, and then Lintasarta create two ports for us, one for the customer, the other one is to AWS. So you can see there are 2 points here. Corporate data center will connect to the customer or partner router, and then the AWS Direct Connect will connect to the AWS Cloud, or in this case is VPC. And which point in the VPC is connected to the Direct Connect endpoint? It is the virtual private gateway. It's not, again, it's not the internet gateway. Yeah, it's virtual private gateway. So it's the same like the VPN path. Yes, the difference is the box in the middle here is not using the public internet pathway. Yeah, so that means we don't use the same road, different road. That means faster because there is no queue there, right? Okay. Okay, before we come to the subnet and access, let's have a break for 5 minutes. We come back here again at 9:37. Yeah. Maybe you want to have a toilet break, or maybe you want to have a cup of coffee, some snacks. Go ahead. We'll come back here by 9:37. See you again. All right. I hope everyone has been back to the place again, and hopefully you have grabbed your cup of coffee. Let's continue, yeah? Let's see security groups and network access controllers. What I want to remind you is that you have to have an imaginations of like this. Okay. So first of all, we have an region. Huh? We have a region. Can you see my whiteboard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can, sir.
Okay. And then we have AZ. Here we have 3 AZ. Okay. And then AZ2 and AZ3. And then we also have VPC. Okay, so the VPC is within the AZ. This is that, remember, the infrastructure is replicated, yeah? So we have a replicate of VPC also here and also in the AZ3. This happen automatically because this is the replications of resources in the within the region that is AWS responsibility. And so this is VPC. I will not write the same here, so you're not like confused. So this is the VPC that we created, but then it is replicated here. Yeah? Yeah, of course. Let's put it down here. Okay. And then within the VPC, we are going to create the public subnet and the private subnet. So there is nothing that can resides out of this subnet. Everything will be under or within the subnet. Yeah. So it's either public or private resources. Okay. We say this is public, and then this one is private. Okay. Say this is red one. You cannot access this. Okay. This is what we have gathered so far, yeah? Region, AZ, and VPC, we have public and private. And then we have here, the internet gateway. Yeah, I will not draw this. I just want you to see that we have covered this so far. Yeah, AZ, VPC, public and private. We have internet gateway, we have VPG, and for the VPN user, we have direct connect for a more private connectivity. And now, once you know this, then the rest is who can access what. So there is a person, user, okay, that can access the VPC. So the next session is that we are talking about the access permissions. Yeah. So I want you to have this big picture, so you're not like, oh, there is so many material. In concept, you have to know this, like this picture. And then after that, what happened next is if somebody wants to get in, then they have to be allowed. And when they are allowed, there are some rules. Yeah. That's supposed to be applied. So that is the big picture. So you have to arrange that in your mind. So it will be easier for you to visualize it within your mind. Let's see the security group and the NACL, or network access control list. We used to what abbreviated it as NACL or NACL. Let's see. Sorry, sorry. Saya lupa nge-share balik ya. Kok nggak ada yang ngasih tahu ya? Wait. Okay.
Welcome to your virtual private cloud, or VPC. You can think of it as a hardened fortress where nothing goes in or out without explicit permission via the appropriate gateways. But that only covers perimeter, and that's only one part of the network security that you should be focusing on as part of your IT strategy. AWS has a wide range of tools that cover every layer of security: firewalls, distributed denial of service or DDoS prevention, encryption, and much more. We're going to talk about these a bit later in the security section. Today, I want to talk about a few aspects of network hardening, looking at what happens inside the VPC. One of the main reasons to use subnets in a VPC is to control access to the gateways. The public subnets have access to the internet gateway, the private subnets do not. But subnets can also control traffic permissions. Packets are messages from the internet, and every packet that crosses the subnet boundaries gets checked against something called a Network Access Control List, or Network ACL. This check is to see if the packet has permissions to either leave or enter the subnet based on who it was sent from and how it's trying to communicate. You can think of network ACLs as passport control officers. If you're on the approved list, you get through. If you're not on the list, or if you're explicitly on the do not enter list, then you get blocked. Network ACLs check traffic going into and leaving a subnet. This list gets checked on your way in and on the way out. And just because traffic is let in doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to let responses back out. Only explicitly approved traffic can be sent on its way. Now, this sounds like great security, but it doesn't answer all of the network control issues. A network ACL only gets to evaluate a packet if it crosses a subnet boundary, in or out. It doesn't evaluate if a packet can reach a specific EC2 instance or not. Sometimes you will have multiple EC2 instances in the same subnet, but they might have different rules around who can send them messages and what port those messages are allowed to be sent to. So you need instance-level networking security as well. To solve instance-level access questions, we introduce security groups. Every EC2 instance, when it's launched, automatically comes with a security group, and by default, the security group does not allow any traffic into the instance at all. All ports are blocked. All IP addresses sending packets are blocked. That's very secure, but perhaps not very useful if you want an instance to actually accept traffic from the outside, like, say, a message from a front-end instance or a message from the internet. So obviously, you can modify the security group to accept a specific type of traffic. In the case of a website, you want web-based traffic like HTTPS to be accepted, but not other types of traffic. If network ACLs are passport control, a security group is like the doorman at your building, the building being the EC2 instance in this case. The doorman will check a list to ensure that someone is allowed to enter the building, but won't bother to check the list on the way out. With security groups, you allow specific traffic in, and by default, all traffic is allowed out. I just described two different things letting good packets in and keeping bad packets out. The key difference between a security group and a network ACL is the security group is stateful. That means, as we talked about, it has some kind of a memory when it comes to who to allow in or out. And the network ACL is stateless, which remembers nothing and checks every single packet that crosses its border regardless of any circumstances. This metaphor is important to understand. So I want to illustrate the round trip of a packet as it goes from one instance to another instance in a different subnet. Now, this traffic management, it doesn't care about the contents of the packet itself. In fact, it doesn't even open the envelope. It can't. All it can do is check to see if the sender is on the approved list. All right, let's start with a couple instances, and we want to send a packet from instance A to instance B in a different subnet. Same VPC, different subnets. So instance A sends the packet. Now the first thing that happens is that packet meets the boundary of the security group of instance A. By default, all outbound traffic is allowed from a security group. So you can walk right by the doorman and leave. Cool, right. The packet made it past the security group of instance A. Now it has to leave the subnet boundary. At the boundary, the packet must now make it through passport control, the network ACL. The network ACL doesn't care about what the security group allowed, it has its own list of who can pass and who can't. If the traffic address is allowed, you can keep going on your journey, which it is. It's left instance A and subnet 1 entirely, so now it must go through to subnet 2, where it's checked against subnet 2's incoming network ACL, and through the security group of instance B. Once through those, instance B can receive and process the request. After the transaction's complete, now it's time to come home. It's the return traffic pattern. It's the most interesting because this is where the stateful compared to stateless nature of the different engines comes into play, because the packet still has to be evaluated at each checkpoint. Security groups, by default, allow all return traffic, so they don't have to check a list to see if they're allowed out. Instead, they automatically allow return traffic to pass by, no matter what. At the subnet boundary, these network ACLs do not remember state. Every entrance and exit is checked with the appropriate list. Stateless controls means it always checks the list. Instance B's security group is the first to evaluate, and since it's return traffic and this security group saw the original request packet, the return traffic is allowed. The network ACL of subnet 2 goes to evaluate, and being stateless, it has to check the list again. By the way, this is a different list than the one on the way in. Network ACLs have rules for both incoming and outgoing, and they can be different.
Every
Now, on
day,
the
people
instance
juggle
side,
so many
our
different
packet is
tools
inspected
just
as
to
the
get work
stateless
done.
network ACL
A
of
simple
subnet
task
1 checks the list every time. And the last check is the security group of instance A. Again, because this is return traffic, it doesn't check the list on the way back in, so the packet is allowed and it goes to complete the
Wait a moment here. So
Hey
meanwhile,
everybody, today I'm going to
I
show you
have
how to
been
use.
copying some references. You can copy that from the in-call messages. That's how you're going to use AWS console to create EC2, and also give you some references of how to use
Let's talk about what it takes to
Terraform
deploy
in
Amazon
creating
Web.
the EC2. And
flow at instance A. It might seem like we spent a lot of effort just getting a packet from one instance to another and back. You might be concerned about all the network overhead this might generate. The reality is, all of these exchanges happen instantly as part of how AWS networking actually works. That's why it's important to learn all of this. You want to ensure your IT strategy design includes defining the rules for your security groups and network ACLs. That way, your network design will meet your specific needs while also ensuring good network security. After all, security is a critical consideration in all networking for modern architectures.
okay, so that's about the subnets, public, private, and then also how actually network traffic is applied in the form of NACL or network access control list, and how actually the rules between one subnet to the other by applying the NACLs, right? So we are going to finish today's sessions. So far, we have covered by the syllabus. Today, we're talking about global infrastructure and reliability. And then also, we have discussed about the networking. Okay. Let me show you one more time. About the scoring. Okay, before that, I would like to give you some resources. All right. I think those are all. The last link from the Stefan Marek. Stefan Marek is a good creator, a good content creator for the AWS. So you can follow a lot of videos created by him regarding the AWS. Yeah, a lot of people also, when they take certifications, they follow or they learn from Stefan Marek video. So those are all like around 5 references that you can use. Your assignment today and to be demonstrate and presented on Monday is to create an EC2, yeah, or EC2s. You can create more than one EC2. And then this EC2 has to be accessible from the internet or from the private network, can access the internet to install something or to download something, kind of that things. You have to prove that. All right. So in that, we can practice how to create a VPC, how to create a subnets, and how to create an EC2, and then deploy the NACL. Yeah. No, Kevin. Yeah, I'm talking about the weekly assignment project. Yeah. So the FGD demo and presentations week 1, you are going to create an EC2 or more than one EC2 in any subnet, in 1 or 2 subnets, in public subnet or in private subnet. And then you're going to apply the NACL so that the EC2 will be accessible from the internet, or you can download any resources from the internet by using your private resources. Yeah. Before I refresh this the scoring, any questions about the assignment? Okay, while waiting for you, let us see the scoring. So at the left side, per se this is Adam, yeah? So on the left side, you can see we have completed introductions to AWS, and then computing the cloud yesterday. And then today, we are talking about global infrastructure and reliability and networking. Yeah. So on Monday, you're going to do this FGD demo and presentations for week 1. All right. And how I'm going to score you? So basically, there are 40% of conceptual, this, and then 20% of using the tools, in this case, you can use console, and you can also use cloud formations or Terraform. And of course, you're going to use some CLI also, especially when you apply the credential, yeah? And then I'm going to score you about the effectivity of how you are going to use all these tools. And then 30% for verbal, you're going to do the presentations on Monday. I'm going to assess how good you are in doing the presentations in terms of articulation. You can see what is the articulations, and then tone, flow, pacing, and engagement. Engagement means like how the audience will attach to your presentations and thus will ask some relatable questions. And then the last one, 10% is English. You're going to do the presentations in English. So I'm going to see how you are going to read, speaking, and also conversating. What is the difference between speaking and conversation? Speaking is like when you do the presentations, you're going to read your presentations and you are going to speak it out. But when we do a question and answer, you're going to answer me in a verbal English. That is your conversational. All right? So all these things you can see a very detail about, let's say about the conceptual. You have to show that you understand the concept by showing that you can answer the what aspect. What is the what aspect? First, you're going to give a clear, accurate, and complete definition, no ambiguity. So you really know what it is. And if you are only mostly clear about something but missing minor details or precision, then you only get score for around 11 to 20. And if your definition is not complete, a little bit blurry and difficult to understand, then your score is going to be around 0 to 10. Yeah, so that's how I score it. If you get this 25 and then another Y is 20 and all this, and then altogether it's going to be weighted for 40%. Yeah, this is all 100%. Yeah, 25, 20, 20, so 85. Yeah, and then another 15, 25, okay, sorry, 25, 20, 20, 15, and 20. Yeah, 60 and 40. So it's 100%. Out of this 100%, you only be weighted for 40% and so on. Yeah. So when you do your assignment, you better refer to this scoring. About the access tools, how you use the AWS console. You have to demonstrate full capability to use mostly menus and services to complete the assigned task. So you can do this with AWS console. Or if you're only partially unfamiliar to some menus, when you do the demonstrations, the score will be around 11 and 20. Yeah, the worst is if you confuse, unable, or hardly to find menus, then you're going to have like at most is 10. So you have to practice. I mean, like how to practice? First of all, get yourself used to the console, AWS console. Second, you have to record, note it down, the step to create what you need to do in the task. Let's say if you want to create an EC2, what you need to click, write it down. Why it's important? You can take a peep on your notes when you do the demo, so that you will not miss a thing. And then if you do it so well, I see it like, oh, this is fluent, then you are eligible for 20 to 30 points of using the console, as well as the cloud formations and Terraform. Yeah. You have to understand how to use CloudFormations and how to create a script in Terraform. And then you demonstrate how to use the CloudFormations and the Terraform. I don't need you to type in your script in the demo. It's going to be very long. Yeah. So the demo and presentations is only 2 minutes, and then the demo 2 minutes. Altogether is 5 minutes. So altogether you are 15 right now. We only need like 75 minutes to do the demo and presentations. Yeah. Excluding the question and answer. So altogether your presentations is 5 minutes. So you don't need to type in from the scratch your script, but you have to be able to highlight the most important part in your Terraform script or in your CloudFormation script. For the CloudFormations and Terraform, you have to show how to upload the script and let the AWS work with that. Or for Terraform, how are you going to execute, compile and execute your script? And then we can see that the Terraform is applying to the AWS. Okay. And there is also CLI, command line interface. Usually this is useful when you try to log in through your terminal. And you're going to supply the user ID, password, and a secret key to the AWS, and then you got login. And then you can then continue with the CloudFormations or the Terraform. Okay. The API maybe later, you are like the final project, you're going to use the API, which actually you are going to embed your API in the HTML or JavaScript. And so you're going to create a program, and then that program will use the AWS API and hit or interact with the AWS. Altogether, using console, whether you're using console together with CloudFormations or Terraform or with CLI, and I'm going to see how effective you are when you are demonstrating that. So that's why you have to note down every single step that you need to recreate what you have done before. So I can see it flows smoothly, and you're eligible for 10 points in the effectivity. This one here. Okay. Verbal, articulation, tone, flow, and pacing, and also engagement. You can read it by yourself. English also. So I mean, like, this is the most critical one, the conceptual and the hands-on. It's all together is 60%. Okay. Any questions? Yes.
Sir, is this assignment for the whole program or just for the week one?
For the starting introductions to networking.
Okay, and this will be present at the end of the program or
No,
the
on
middle?
Monday.
Oh, on Monday next week, right?
Yeah.
I see. Okay, okay. So this is the okay, okay, okay.
Yeah.
I see, I see.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Sir, do we need to provide a slideshow for the conceptual explanation?
Yes, you can use Canva or Microsoft PowerPoint.
Okay, sir.
Any other questions? Yes.
Sir, I just want to know the flow of the demo. So, is it start by we create it on the console and then we try to connect it via CLI, or it is in separate things?
What do you mean? I mean, like,
Oh,
if you are using the AWS console, you are going to log into your console and start creating things. when you are using the formations and Terraform, you're going to use a credential before you can inject your script into the AWS. So you might want to log in first. In this case, you're going to use the CLI. Or sometimes some students, they embed the credentials into the Terraform script. There are ways to do that. So that's why I encourage you to watch the YouTube videos.
Okay, sir. I will read it about it first.
Okay. So your presentation is not going to be very fancy. I don't like a crowded, wordy kind of presentations. It has to be very, very short one, very efficient one. I don't like colors everywhere, like, you know, all those decorations. Yeah. Put in the picture that you think it is required for you to explain. Actually, what you are going to put in your presentations is all about your demonstrations. So you can tell your goals, how to do it, and then just start with your demo. So while you are doing the demonstrations, you can also, like, you know, giving some explanations. Like what I did with my whiteboard before. When I'm creating things, I said, okay, I'm creating this, and then this, and then this. And then now we are going to see what, and then so on and so forth, kind of that things. You can do that. So it will be more effective because your time is only 5 minutes. Yeah. What if you do the demonstrations, the presentations more than 5 minutes? You're going to get a discount. Yeah. So use a timer, practice to do the presentations before you do it with me on Monday. So you're going to measure exactly or less than 5 minutes before you end up your presentations and demonstration. Yeah. It has to be fit within 5 minutes. If more than that, discount. Let's say you're doing very good, like you're supposed to get like eligible for 90%. But since you pass the time, then you will get discount based on how many minutes. Yeah. Okay. Other questions?
I have questions, sir.
Yes.
The demonstration to real time, or I can use the video or record from the demonstration.
Sorry?
I mean, if I execute this initiative, I can use the record execute, or I in the real time on the presentation.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. So as a backup, you can have a pre-recorded video. So let's say if the network connection is not that good, you can just show your video. I mean, part of the submission is your presentations and video also. Okay. All right. So, Mas Adia, I would like you to create a Google Drive and share it with the students so that they can upload the presentation slides and also the video.
Okay, Pak Ricky, I'll do that after this. Should the inside of the folder consist of the weekly folder that they need to upload, or should it just be one folder based on their name?
It could be one place, but I would like you to arrange it so that it will not be scattered around. I mean, like, if you can create a specific folder for each and every students.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or you create like the general folder for them, like assignments, whatever, basics. And after that, each student has the permissions to create a folder.
Create a folder. Okay, sure,
Yeah.
sure. I'll do. I'll do it
Alright.
after this, and then I'll send the link to the group.
Thank you very much. And to all of you, you have to be very aware that you have to create your own folder and put your presentation slides and video. It's supposed to be not mixed with the other students. If it happens like that, then I have to discount it also, because you already give some trouble to Mas Adia, yeah? So Mas Adia will going to create a folder, share it to you. You can create a folder. So you create your a folder based on your name, and then you put in your video and presentation slides. All right. Any other questions before we end up this? Yes. The Excel, I think Mas Adia will share it to you, the blank one, very soon. Yeah, so you can refer to this. Okay. You're most welcome. Other questions? No? I hope you understand. The references that I give you, it's just a guideline for you that you can, always search for yourself for whichever YouTube sources that is best for you to follow with. And one thing for the creativity, I would like to see your creativity. Maybe I only ask for an easy to put in a private and public subnet, and you can get access to it. But I do not know what other things else that you're going to show me. It's just that not extending the scope of the topics, yeah? Because we are going to do it in another topic. We are going to do it in the coming weeks, yeah? So within these topics, as you can see in the syllabus, it's up to the networking. But I would like to see your creativity in creating something to show so that it will be like something different to the other person. And I'll give you an extra point for that. Right? If there is no more questions, thank you very much for your presence today. We will end up these sessions today, and I'll leave it to you to do your own individual assignments. We're going to meet again tomorrow at 8 o'clock as usual. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.